The close-ups and the imagery of this episode was so freaking beautiful. Like, my God. This series is... As a person that loves romance, that loves just series like this, I'm a sucker. I've admitted this many times. I'm biased. I'm a sucker for romance. But man, this is good. This is a good one. This is definitely a good one. This is my romance of the season, Winter of Anime 2018. Because even though I know many are probably already turned off from this series thanks to the synopsis, thanks to the first episode, what I talked about mostly in my first impressions last week, I do think this is going to be one of those sleeper hits. It's going to be that hidden gem amongst everything else from this anime season, and I don't see this series becoming too popular because of the theme of it, since it has, you know, a younger girl, you know, falling in love with an older guy over the age of 40. It makes a lot of sense why people wouldn't be into this series, because in normal ways, when you look at it, it's creepy. And also, it comes down to culture thing as well. And I can see why many wouldn't want to, you know, continue watching or even read the original source because of it. But even then, though, it's the true aspect of love. Love just happens. You can't control your feelings. Love is like that. Love, as I've said, is illogical. You can't control it. When you fall in love, you fall in love. When you fall out of love, you fall out of love. It's just how it is. And that's basically what this show is trying to say, is that anyone can find love, and no matter who you are, someone might love you. That's basically what this show is trying to imply, and I like that aspect quite a bit. But if you made it this far, if you're on episode 2 of After the Rain, yes, I shortened the title name down because it's easier to say in one quick burst. Basically, if you made it to episode 2, I think you most likely are going to stick with this series, because episode 1 was like the make it or break it episode. I don't think many are probably going to give this series a 3-episode rule chance, because normally people do, but I don't think it's going to be one of those series. I don't think it's going to be one of those series to where it's like, okay, let's give it 3 episodes, let's see if it's good. If it's good, I'll continue watching. If it's not, I'll drop it. I feel many are just going to make their decision on the first episode because of the, you know, the plot and the characters and all of that. I could see that already happening. So, yeah. Anyways, getting right into it, though, let's talk about the shocking revelation or confession at the end of the episode. Yes, you heard me right. There is a confession at the end. Now, it was, in a way, cliche. I admit that. I mean, it follows the standard cliches you would see in a romance, and sadly, not all series can be like how, you know, the last romance of the last season was, you know, one of my personal favorites. You know what I'm talking about. Basically, not all series can be like that in terms of romance and build-up, which is sad. But at the same time, though, I feel like there's some hidden meaning going on with that final scene, that confession scene, that we need to kind of analyze and talk about. Number one, looking at it just on a piece of paper, just looking at it, not really viewing it and trying to analyze it, it looks like it's standard cliche, trying to slow down the plot and make it to where the characters won't become a couple, or romance won't happen, or nobody will get an actual definitive answer on whatever each other feels. For instance, Tachibana, she doesn't get an answer if, you know, Kondo, the manager, actually cares for her, or if, you know, Kondo is willing to accept her feelings. We don't get those answers, and many might view that entire segment as a way to slow the plot down. But at the same time, even if it was for that, because most likely that is what it was for, there's also 2 other things that we could pull from that. Number one, the standard thing you can look at this to make it a logical cliche that actually doesn't make it that bad is the fact you gotta view the manager's position, and also Tachibana as well. Number one, let's look at this episode. Basically, Tachibana, she, as we know, she's been falling in love with the manager, and she knows she's in love with him. And in the episode, she realizes that a customer was leaving without his phone. So she decided to run after the man while, you know, the manager's like, oh, he'll come back and all that. He's like, he just gave up because he realized he couldn't possibly catch up. And so Tachibana, since she had, you know, a certain area of, you know, skill in running, since she was in track and field, she decided to take it upon herself to grab the phone from the manager and go run off to the dude that was on the bike to give him his phone. And it was an incredible distance, and it does show how incredible Tachibana was when she was in track and field. But at the same time, though, it shows knows how damaged she is. For instance, she can no longer do that. Even though she's very impressive and she could easily have been a star, she can't do that anymore because of how her injury is, which we do get to see in this episode. We knew about it, but we fully get to see it how bad it really is, because her running just that quick little spurt caused her to be in that much pain to where she couldn't even walk. That just proves how bad it is, and she definitely could never continue being a runner ever again because of that injury. It would take probably a long time to ever probably get back in a position to probably do track and field again, but by that time, school would probably be over. So basically her dream of that is, it's done. So getting back into it though, she ran over to try to give the man his phone, and she does make it. But when she finally gets back, she collapses, and the manager assumes that something happened in that run, and he wants to take responsibility upon himself. So being a good guy, being a good manager, thanks to his characterization from the first episode and also in this episode, he decides to leave work, help her out, and take her to the doctor. When he gets there, basically he wants to know if everything's okay, and he's just acting like a really good dude. He's just acting like a good man that's making sure that his employee is fine. And so I respect that quite a bit. He was not doing anything else. He wasn't having ulterior motives. He was just making sure she was fine, because at the end of the day, technically he would kind of be responsible for that, since she, wanted to give the man back his phone, and he, she was working in business hours with him, so it would kind of rely on him, because he was supposed to make sure nobody would get injured, so he obviously was blaming himself. When he does find out, though, later on in the episode, that apparently her injury was actually from a long time ago, it kind of relieves his guilt. But before that happens, though, we get to the confession scene. The confession scene is something we gotta look at his position and also Tachibana's. See, when they were sitting down and they were, having a, cup of coffee or whatever, tea, I forget exactly what it was they were drinking, but they were just having drinks and stuff. They were sitting down, and she's like, I like you. And from that moment, we gotta realize, even though we know what Tachibana means, she's like, I like you, which means I love you and all that, you gotta look at it from his perspective and how he understood it. Number one, he's the manager, okay? And so at a workplace and all that, he automatically assumed that maybe Tachibana didn't like him. That's what he assumed. And we saw that many times in the first episode. He assumed she didn't like him, the way she constantly glared at him, which makes a lot of sense. So, after this episode, the events of him, helping her out, grabbing her, taking her to the doctor and all that, he probably assumed that maybe she started to like him now because of him helping her out and being a good person. Maybe that's why he acted like that. So, it puts logic to the cliche and the misunderstanding, because if you were in that position, maybe you might interpret it like that. If you thought someone hated you, but then they said, I like you, you would assume like, oh, is it probably because I grabbed them, helped them out, took them to the doctor so they can get, proper checkup? I could definitely see that. And so, that makes sense why he would act like that and why that misunderstanding would happen in the first place. Now, there's another way to look at this as well. The manager obviously has been around the block a few times. He knows how the world works. He's over 40, so he has seen things. He's a divorced man as well, so he's been with a person, and so he knows that's how a relationship is. And there's a very likely possibility that maybe he knew what Tachibana was saying, and it would explain his actions and why he quickly got out of that area. Like, as soon as that happened, he starts smiling and all that, and he just quickly tried to get up and leave. Maybe he just didn't know how to interpret it or handle it, and so he just got up and left, and so he was just like, yeah. So, that could be also the case. Maybe he was aware, he negated it, he just, changed topic, and then he left. That also makes sense. But also to add on to the other one, though, before I got into this one, we also got to take into consideration that someone like a young girl falling in love with an older man, 40-plus-year-old man that has a child and she knows he has a child, typically someone doesn't usually try to start a relationship with someone like that. So that also could be why he didn't interpret it like, oh, she loved him. Just also want to point that out. It's a very realistic exchange between these two characters, and I don't think many should really fault the writing in that aspect. Even though obviously it was to stall time for the series, it still makes logical sense, and so I cannot put the writing of the show down because of what it did in this episode. So, quality stuff after the rain. You did a good job with episode 2, you carried on that quality from the first episode. It's definitely something I'm going to continue watching. Now, with all that out of the way, though, gotta say, I do hope more people actually watch this show. I know for a fact this is probably gonna end up like many other romance series I've reviewed in the past, or other series that are really good, just people don't watch. For instance, a show I'm currently, reviewing and talking about is March Comes In Like a Lion, and it's a critically underrated, underwatched series, and it's one of the best shows from last year, still airing right now. It just saddens me that not many people want to watch it or take the time to watch it, because they assume it's just about shogi and that's it, and you know, that doesn't sound fascinating or interesting, but it's such a good show. I just hope this show doesn't turn out like March Comes In Like a Lion, even though it's a great show. I just feel like many are probably gonna throw this series under the table and all that and just completely forget about it. I hope it doesn't end up like that. So I want to end it there. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like. And if you want to get notified for whenever I upload my next video, please click the bell icon down below next to the subscribe button. Now, FYI, if you're still not getting notifications, even though you've clicked the bell icon, someone has told me recently that if you click the bell icon, unclick it, and click it back again, the notifications start working once again. That's what someone told me. So if you've been still having issues with that, just, you know, re-click it again just to see if it works out for you. That's the only advice I can really give you until whatever YouTube is doing. I don't know what they're doing with notifications, but it's been a big problem recently. So, I love you guys. You have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Love you guys. Stay warm. Chibi out.